All right, and welcome to a special episode of the Prosper Market Show where we're going to interview market makers. We hear about FCs and alliance leaders and other masters in the game, but we seldom hear from market makers and get to hear their stories. So this week in our first episode, I have invited delonewolf of Eve Talk to talk with us about the other market show and kind of the inspiration for getting this whole project started. So welcome to the show, delonewolf.
Thank you very much, Lockfox. It's great to be here.
Again, thanks for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about your history in game and where players may have heard of you?
Okay, so I've been playing EVE Online for a few years now, and I make EVE Online videos. So I think from my YouTube channel /delonewolf, that's where most people will probably know me from. And one aspect of that is Eve Talk, as you said. It's like a show that's centered around the market in EVE Online, but I also try to cover whatever else it is that I do in game.
So again, we just wanting to give listeners who may not have heard of your show or what you do in game a chance to know what you do in game, out of game, where people might know you from, and what sort of EVE career you enjoy.
Okay, so I've been playing EVE Online for a few years now, and I think most people will know me from my YouTube channel, where I make videos not only on the market, but on pretty much whatever else it is that I do in the game. And I would say that I'm probably not that well known in game itself, because the major philosophy behind my playstyle is that I want to remain as independent as possible. So I only take people that I know in real life in my corporation, and then I just try to find my way, set my goals in EVE Online, but they have to be manageable in a very small and independent group so that we can always decide to do something else or go our own way, so that there are absolutely no obligations in the way we play EVE Online. That's like the most important for us. That led to, at first, doing quite a bit of care bearing with my brother. That's basically how we got started. But after getting a little bit acquainted with the game, after getting some capital together, we also tried other things like Wormhole Experiment, where we lived in a C1 wormhole for a while. And at the moment, we're actually trying some stuff in Nosek as well. But throughout all of my playing of EVE Online, there's always been that one thing that interested me a lot, that is making videos about games. So not only EVE Online, but absolutely about EVE Online as well. And yeah, that's how I started my YouTube channel, and I've just been making videos ever since. And part of that has become a weekly show that I do. It's called Eve Talk, which I consider to be like a weekly look at what's happening in the market in EVE Online and all of the connections between that and all the news and all the events that happen in game, because it's such an integral part of the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't make it a secret that your show was really the inspiration to get me started on my YouTube stuff. I specifically love your additional content where you dive into like skill packet trading editorial piece you did and those kind of things, where the content is great, the opinions are well formed, and you definitely set a high bar to strive for, which it really inspired at least me, and I hope others.
Well, that's really cool to hear. That's almost like an honor that there's people that enjoy my videos enough that they actually want to try and make their own shows. I absolutely would recommend anyone that has any interest in making videos about EVE Online to give it a go, because at least from my experience, it's a lot of fun and you get a lot back from that. When it comes to those extra blogs that you were talking about, that is indeed a part of the type of videos that I make as well. EVE Online is such a unique and complex game. CCP is constantly working on trying to improve the game. Sometimes they make controversial decisions as well, which don't always sit all too well with the Reddit crowd. But then, making a detailed analysis on the dev blog, seeing what their motives are. It's actually really important, I think, to try and communicate as much as possible with other players, so within the player base, but also with CCP, And part of that, making videos is also like giving a voice to an opinion. Other people can make comments, CCP might see it, and then it might have an impact on the game. And that's absolutely crucial. I think that communication between CCP and the players. CCP is all for it, but of course we also have to put some work in that. And I think, making videos, if you can enjoy that, it's absolutely a great medium to do so. The more people do it, I would say, the better it's going to be for all of us, including the game itself. So.
Excellent. So this is one of the questions I want to move on to, is the one I really want to ask every single guest who comes on the show, because it usually is a really good story. I'd love to hear how you earned your first billion ISK in EVE.
Okay, now I don't think a lot of people are gonna like my answer, but I made my first billion mining. So maybe I should start with how I came into the game here first. So my brother found out about EVE Online when we were playing other fantasy MMOs, one that should not be named. We found the forums. They were full of such interesting stories. It was almost scary to try EVE Online at first. But we gave a free trial a go, and we were absolutely in love with owning our own post. That was really like the first goal that we set in EVE Online. And we each decided, because we wanted to do our own thing from the start, how are we going to try and manage that? And my brother went the mission route, and I immediately went for the mining route. I loved the idea of like a constant income. All my game time would be exactly planned into how much ISK I would have at the end of the hour, at the end of the day, etc. I went the mining route. I skilled straight for the Hulk, which at the time was the absolute best mining ship, even for a solo player. So that's basically how I started the game and how I went for our first capital. Now, unfortunately, we did hit a pretty significant road bump during that beginning here in EVE Online, and that is just a few days after I had mined enough capital to buy that first Hulk. I was mining all of that in a retriever. There was this one red thing that started flying around my Hulk. I can still remember it today, although it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, and I checked it. It was not a rat, but it was something else. And I said, man, that's just a small Take 1 frigate. What can he do against my big Hulk? So I deployed my combat drones and I pressed F. And just a few seconds later, I was scrammed. It was another player that had actually looted the containers from rats that I had killed. I was scrammed. He started destroying my drones. And I immediately knew that I made the biggest mistake ever, and that I would actually lose that ship. When I got into structure, he actually tried to ransom me for 250 million ISK, which I think was just a little bit more than what the Hulk cost at the time. I spent all my money getting that first Hulk. I made the capital mistake of flying something that I, in fact, could not really afford to lose. So I had to tell him, sorry, man, I have no money to give you. And he blew up my Hulk. And I was like a little bit, oh my God, what did I just do? And then I had to go beg to my brother for all his money, all the corporate money, and we could scrounge enough together to get another Hulk. And after that, I just went completely crazy because I felt that obligation to pay back my brother for what he just gave me. So I mined like a crazy person. I paid him back, and then I actually made my first billion, continuing to mine in that second Hulk, because that's basically how I learned to abandon my rigs in the belts. So yeah, it was quite an adventure, and that was like the first real loss in the game. And I do think that that's part of what completely hooked me to EVE Online. That was that first experience of losing that ship, and I was completely lost at that moment. And if it wasn't for my brother, who allowed me to get that second Hulk right away, I don't know what I would have done. But that also shows that having a few people to support you that will help you helps greatly in EVE Online.
That's excellent. I love that echoes what Rise said at the last Fan Fest, where even though we expect people who get into those situations where they are, they get into that first unexpected PvP, and you think that they're just going to rage quit and go, oh, this game is BS, I hate it. more of the people who get in those bad situations stay in. And I don't know if that's a spite factor or oh my gosh, this is really engaging, but more of those people stay hooked in. And I love hearing those stories, because I've heard it from so many other players, similar. I lost everything, and then just to show them who what's for, I got it all back and I'm better now, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit like a race with my brother. I was down a hulk, I had to pay money, and then I had to still pull my weight to get that boss together, to show that we were in a little bit of a competition between his missioning in battleships and my mining in a hulk. And so I really felt obligated to, okay, I'm going to have to surpass him now. Really, I'll have to do my best. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this, or a lot of the viewers know this, but this actually is very similar to the story that Hilmar told at FanFest, I think a few years ago, where he had a very similar experience. He actually borrowed a ship from someone else to mine, and he lost it traveling on a gate, and he also felt that obligation to earn it back the legit way. And that's something that you have in EVE Online. It's a real loss, and if you want to make up for that, then you got to keep playing the game, trying to get better and learn from your mistakes. And that's absolutely a blast to go through. It's an experience that I'll never forget. Even now, I still remember vividly that moment when I made that mistake of sending my drones on that player, fully thinking that he could do nothing against my big hull Tech 2 ship, like 20-30 times as big as his, but it was like a very costly mistake, but one that hooked me to the game.
That's awesome. Now, another big thing, you touched on it in your story, but what are your favorite projects you've worked on in game? Like, for instance, I've done some projects with some friends that are big industry projects. I love building jump freighters, for instance, and I would love to hear if there are other big POS projects or group projects that you got to lead, if there were any there that really made a good story or were impactful to your game.
Okay, yeah, there are definitely a couple. I would say the one that I'm most proud of is where I decided to live in a C1 wormhole. It was a decision that I took on my own because everyone else was a little bit active. It was right at the end of the summer. But I said, okay, I want to get it into a C1, get a POS in there, at least build a battleship, which is something you can't bring into a C1 wormhole, and then see how far I can get in there. The other guys actually found really interesting. And so with 3 other people, we ended up living in that wormhole after I had set most of the things up. So I did do most of the work there. But it went so well. We could do all of those sites. We played together. We got a little PvP. We got rid of a few Pocos. We replaced those as well. I decided, okay, I'm going to do the craziest thing. I'm going to make myself a carrier in a C1 wormhole. And I built a Thanatos in there, which we could then use. At the time, you could still assign your fighters. We could use that to destroy more Pocos or just do some fun things with. Maybe drop on someone. Who would expect a Thanatos to show up in a C1 wormhole? That was really cool that I managed to do that. And the best part of that story is actually how it ends, because I was making videos about my wormhole experience, and then one of the viewers saw it and they said, when I was starting to wind down on the C1 experiment, okay, we actually want to move into your wormhole and we're interested in buying that. And so I sold the wormhole with the carrier for like 2 billion ISK. And then they continued on. And unfortunately for them, they lost a carrier without ever getting a carrier pilot in the wormhole. And so I also got the money back from the loss of the carrier, another 500 million. So it turned out to be a very fun experience. I did something that I always wanted to do, make the biggest ship possible in a C1 wormhole, really be the big fish in that C1. And I even ended up with a profit there in a pretty funny manner.
That's excellent. And then you touched on it, but are there any other things outside of the traditional market and mining and industry parts of the game that you really enjoy? You touched on PvP, and are there any other parts that you really enjoy?
Okay, yeah. Wormhole diving, living in the wormhole was quite a unique experience, but we also do try to do some day trips with the guys, get a couple of specific ships in together and go dive in a wormhole, clean it up, maybe do some PvP, whatever. That's definitely a fun aspect, but no longer in like a completely live in wormhole space type of gameplay. Just dive in there and then at the end of the day, get back out, have some fun that way. I would say what I actually enjoy the most in EVE Online, it's actually the live events. That's part of the storyline. I am a bit of a lore buff and I absolutely love the story in EVE Online. And so the live events, if I would have to say one aspect of the game that I enjoy the most, it is reading about the story, trying to join those live events, and of course making videos about them. That's in fact the type of videos that I started making. That was basically also one of my favorite experience in the game. Those were the Sancha live events where CCP would drop those big fleets of nightmares that would fire on the same target. I would just zoom around in there in a little frigate, record footage, put some nice music in the background and show to people that awesome story that was developing there. So I would say, yeah, some wormhole diving, we enjoyed that. Live events, I absolutely think those are crucial to the game and something that I absolutely love. And then at the moment, I'm working on some nullsec experiments in Providence. It's mostly profit-driven experiment there, but it's definitely a lot of fun to do with the corporation as well.
It's so cool. I have yet to make it to a live event, but most of that's because they're not really US friendly.
Yeah, that's true. CCP working in Iceland, we get most live events like EU time zone. So for the US guys, it could indeed be a bit harder to join those, but I hope that they can enjoy the videos that I try to make about them, of course.
Yeah, you do have excellent B-roll for sure. So moving on, I'd love to hear about why you started Eve Talk. Again, like I said at the top, I started my show because I saw yours and I was like, that's cool. But I didn't want, there should never be one source for information. Like there should never be the one PvP blog and the one trade blog. There should be, 5 or 6 or whatever. But what inspired you to start the show the way you did, and what drove the specific format? I find it particularly interesting that you do it in game, on the couch, in the captain's quarters. I found particularly interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, Eve Talk has got a pretty long history behind it, almost as long as I've been making videos with commentary. And so if I should start at the start, I would say it was the summer of StarCraft 2, where for the first time for me, I saw like really big commentators in there, guys like Husky StarCraft and HD StarCraft, who would play games, commentate on games, and make videos that were viewed by really a lot of people. And then I found one EVE Online Let's Player, and he was called Dr. Ogres. He made like 35 to 50-minute videos on a new account that he started, explaining everything about the game in a lot of detail. I got a huge amount of information from that as well. But he's really the guy that inspired me to not just make videos with music in the background, but really try and make some commentator videos, add some commentaries to what I'm doing, explaining stuff about the game. And at first, I just started with, I'll maybe try to make one commentary a week. And I made that Eve Talk, but it was not specifically about the mark, just anything that I was playing. But as I kept doing this, kept enjoying making these videos, it's pretty much a passion for me now. I started making videos every day, and so Eve Talk had to change. And I can't really tell you when or how I decided to go with this specific format, but I've always loved the market. It's just such an important part of the game. It's maybe a little part of my personal background as well. I do have some interest in economics, and I just at some point, I'm going to cover the market. What would be the best way to do that? Well, just get my character in Jita, check out the local market there, and start trying to make an analysis of what's happening, include events in the game, news about the game, updates that CCP are doing, and their impacts on the market. It's just, the market it's really the lifeblood of EVE Online. It is the sandbox in its purest form, a real demand-supply situation where the players are in control of almost everything. I found it was so interesting that it's worth something to cover at least every week, and it was pretty unique at the time as well, of course, because I think I was the first one to really start covering the market in EVE Online in such a fashion.
And it's not an easy topic to cover either. Half because people think that there's like big secrets that, oh, if I know the future, or I think I know the future, I don't want to tell you guys because I want to make a bunch of money. And what brought me to it was that, you know, the market is so complex and so interconnected that you can't, it's so hard to just sit there and be like, oh, no, I know the market. I'll just tell you that like these 5 things, and I can boil it down into like 600 words and it'll be easy. And unfortunately, the actual analysis required to do it isn't as easy as just taking 100 rifters and going and fighting. It's a different skill set. It takes a different amount of effort versus a lot of the other news content out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that that's unfortunate. That's actually part of what makes EVE Online EVE, of course. You've got all of those unknown factors, you know, possible changes. You also have these huge players with trillions of ISK that sometimes do some crazy stuff, manipulating the market, trying to pinpoint their actions is definitely a part of the fun as well. And as you said, the market in EVE Online is so complex, interconnected. There's an almost infinite amount of markets as well. Jita just happens to be the bigger one that tends to drive most of the economy, but there's local markets as well, big differences between regions, and all of that plays a huge part in the market in EVE Online. And for people that really don't know how complex it is, giving them at least a glance and an analysis from, even if it's a personal point of view, in my case it would mostly be like a Care Bear point of view. I'm not all too familiar with nullsec politics or when something major happens in Wormholes space or anything like that. But I'm hoping that just showing them about the market, sometimes spotting good opportunities as well, can help people wrap their head around what's basically happening in the game, and maybe invite them to try and join these activities as well.
Yeah, so to sort of springboard off of that, so I said that a big reason why I started the show was because we're watching your show, but the other half was that that whole problem space of trying to analyze the market fits pretty well with some IRL projects that I have at my real job. I find that most EVE players have careers and training that are unexpected or mesh well with their play styles. Do you want to talk at all about how your real life career and training overlaps with your gameplay and your interest, and might drive some of the work you do or the things you dive into?
Okay, so I don't really want to go too much into detail because I don't think there's too much personal information that I should give. But my education was definitely in economics, and I work in the banking industry at the moment. So there's just, I would more say a general interest on my part in markets, in economics, and in things like that. And so I'm guessing that that's what's made it easy for me, accessible for me to start a series like EVE Talk. And is it a part of my experience in game, my actual gameplay, so not just for EVE Talk, of course, but I think basically everyone's personality will mirror or have an impact on how they play the game. I tend to be a pretty conservative person who doesn't take too many risks. So although I analyze the market, I will pretty much only bet on a safe horse. And I'm a little bit of a Care Bear. I like to save up my money, make my goals, and then just go about it in a very safe manner, so that I'm really sure step by step what I'm going to do. You know, I like to plan my things out both in real life and in the game. And I can imagine that people that are a bit more hot-headed or impulsive will be drawn to other aspects of the game, like PvP or I don't know, pirating, things like that, maybe even scamming. I think that's really what's great about EVE Online. I don't think it's just your career path or your education, but it's really your personality, your interests, your entire being, basically, that can find fun stuff to do in EVE Online, no matter who you are or how you think. I really do think that EVE is unique in that way, that it offers a playstyle for everyone. You just have to take the step and make the effort to go and get that place in EVE Online that's just right for you.
I absolutely agree. I do want to know how the show impacts your in-game, how the things cross over from the out-of-game work that you do on YouTube to the in-game work you do, whether you collaborate with people that you meet, or if it improves your gameplay because of the extra content. Like, how do both sides feed into each other?
In-game, I get like a lot of highs in local. So for some reason, people do sometimes recognize me, especially if I stick around a certain place for a while. And that's always fun. I do get the occasional just convo out of the blue with sometimes questions. I saw that video and I want to try EVE Online. What would you, some newbies? And I always try to get them forward. But what I get out of it, personally, I set my own goals and I play my own game for the most part, but it's mostly the interaction with the viewers and the information that I give them. For instance, in EVE Talk, sometimes stuff happens to the market that I don't know exactly what's behind them. And what I've found is that a lot of my viewers are actually even way more informed than I am. They know about a lot of that stuff, and they have no problem if I ask a question to put that in the comments, put their theories in the comments, and they come up with a lot of very useful information, with tips and with background that I had no idea about. So I would say just the extra information and all the feedback that I get from the people watching and commenting on my videos is really what I get out of it the most. In game, it's just part of how I enjoy EVE Online. I tend to try and keep to myself, do my own thing, and stay independent as much as possible. That's just a personal preference. I know that there's a lot of people that often ask, hey, can I fly with you? Can I join your corporation? Unfortunately, guys, Co-Incorporated is not recruiting. We're doing our own thing. So I do have to disappoint them a little bit on that front. But for me, this is how I stay motivated, stay in the game, and make sure that I don't burn out. If I would have to start entertaining a dozen people in the corporation in game as well, with organizing events, rooms, and all that sort of stuff, I wouldn't be able to cope with it anymore. There's other things that I want to do as well. So that's just my way of enjoying EVE Online. But the interaction with viewers and the comments, the information that I get from them is sometimes really, really interesting and helpful in game.
I absolutely agree. And it's humbling, especially on my live stream where I have someone pop up and like, no, you're wrong. It's this thing. And I'm like, oh, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that is an experience that I get far more often than I would have ever thought starting the series, just how knowledgeable a lot of players are about the game. It's just, the game is already so complex, and to see all of that knowledge that's ingrained in different people, they know so much about the game that no one can really know everything about EVE Online. And so there's all these expertises that start to show up, people that I know will comment on an EVE Talk when I cover a certain topic, because they have all of that in-depth knowledge. That's part of what really interests them in the game. And getting all of that feedback, finding all of that information is just a straight up blast, and really a part of the motivation why I make a lot of the videos.
So, speaking of being right and wrong and an expert, this goes right into the next question. I specifically dedicate a part of my show to the hits and misses every week, and I know I don't even cover half of my hits and misses. So it still makes a good story when there is, a particular big win, and you're like, I'm so smart, and then the ones where you particularly lose, and you're like, oops. And I'd like to know if there are any particularly big hits or misses you had with your predictions in the show, and how maybe your audience dealt with them, how you dealt with them.
Okay. I generally tend to just avoid that whole situation. So I won't go out and tell people buy this because it's going to be a big winner. From time to time, I spot something and I give them my opinion that, okay, I really think that, for instance, that good is going to start going up for this and this and this reason. And sometimes I say, okay, I'm actually going to make a small move on that myself, and then I try to keep them up to date. I've got mostly hits because I'm really careful with that. I would say I've made a few really successful Plex trades like a few years ago, back when there was a clear pattern in them. When CCP would come out with a winter expansion, there was pretty much always a big speculative bubble around the launch of the winter expansion that would drive Plex prices up completely crazily, and then Plex would start to fall off a little bit towards the end of the summer, bottoming out there. And one of those, I really picked them up for like a dozen Plex, I think, or even more, and sold them for a really big profit 6 months later on the winter expansion. That was one that I was pretty proud of. And I made some small Tech 2 trades as well. I think that the Tech 2 market can be pretty lucrative if you spot the right time to buy the ships. But I tend to not get in the situation where I give people specific tips and then they come home with two losses or something like that. So that's something that I try to not do. On the misses, I've sometimes looking back at things, I do obviously miss a lot of things. For instance, the big sideline mega side jump up with the ore rebalance. Looking back at all the hints and information that I had seen in dev blogs, covered myself in forum posts and information, I should have seen that coming. I should have been able to make a move on that, but for some reason I completely missed that. And I also remember one trade that went horribly wrong when the Tech 3 market was only cruisers and was way oversupplied. I mean, completely depressed with hulls at 120 million and less even. I actually made a move on nano ribbons, and that cost me a lot of money because they just started going down for months and months and months on end, and it never recovered. So I have my fair share of misses. I have a few really good hits, especially when it's a cyclical thing that I can spot. But I don't think I've ever driven any of my viewers into bankruptcy, because I try to always tell them, do with it what you want, but it's going to be your decision. I'm not really giving you a tip here. Just I'm giving you my views on it. That's how I tend to work with that information.
Yeah, I find giving the tips. So I haven't had anyone say that I've broken them yet, though I'm still waiting for hate mail about spoiling a pattern I saw in the multi-character training certificates. So still waiting for that hate mail. The thing that's been frustrating me is that I love industry. Industry, making things is totally my bag. Did that for years and years, but then Creus meant I had to rewrite all the projects. And I said, well, let's do something new instead. And so it's been frustrating to try and bring predictions to people that, some of the ones are a little easier to predict, like the big dev blog swings and those kind of things. And some of the other stuff, like the P4 market one, was I thought was well telegraphed, but nobody believed me. And I want to give people more of those, like the Jim Cramer style buy, sell is what everybody always tells me to do. And it's so hard to find anything. And then I know that I'm telling like 100 or 200 people this same secret. And there are just not a lot of opportunities where I know that we can throw 10 or 15 billion at a problem between 100 people.
That in EVE Online, of course, it's a lot of traders like to keep their secrets. People don't really like to share the tips or the markets they're active in, because they're actually making a profit, and they know that if you bring more people in, it's just gonna squash things because of volume problems. At some point, you're always going to run into the volume problems. That's going to be your bottleneck on any really successful trade. So providing players with that kind of a service, I think, will always be pretty tricky to do. Changes in the game, I think, are always the biggest opportunity. And your P4 prediction right there was indeed right on the money. If you'd asked me beforehand to analyze what you expect that will go into Citadels and a new structure, I would have said a combination of minerals and PI products as well, POSs and capital ship constructions, maybe a little bit of combo like that. It would also have been my prediction. And then people could have probably placed themselves in the market a little bit better, but it's always so difficult. As you said, it's pretty frustrating sometimes to try and predict things, because I've been placing myself into minerals, and you use a lot of minerals into capitals, but they've really not been moving the way I'd expect them to at this point either. So it stays a really tricky thing to do. And I guess, a good education towards the viewers, of letting them know that, well, that's just our analysis of it, and don't take this as a surefire thing. That's the way I prefer to do it. Trying to actually move the market with capital behind you is, I think, something that most players will try to keep a secret, so that they can actually keep the element of surprise on their side.
Yeah, I agree. And the other hard part about predictions, I find, is that I can tell you a lot of decent predictions about I know a friend who was invested in recons for a good 2 years because he was saying to himself, no, this is the one ship they haven't done the major rebalance pass. It has to come. I just don't know when. And he made a killing once it finally arrived, but he had to sit on that investment for 2 years of just a whole stack of recons just sitting there. With the big money value in the info screen. So that's the part I find most frustrating with predictions, is that I can give you some ideas about the price of Plex in the long term might be here, and like you said, around major releases we see the same pattern, and during sales we see a different pattern, but I can't tell you that you can buy this week and sell next week and make X percent, because there's just no way to know. I've been eating crow for 2 months about my Plex prediction because I started the lines at the wrong 0 point. And though I believe in the slope that I plotted, the lines haven't been inside the entire time, because I started the prediction when we were at 1.3 billion, and and I picked the 60-day moving average rather than the 30-day moving average.
Yeah, it's such a complex market, and it's almost like a real market. If you get almost 500,000 accounts active in a single marketplace, you'll have a few really big movers and shakers as well. I mean, an alliance can sometimes decide on a new doctrine, and that just completely switches out that one ship market. Deviations in the meta are such a big impact, but as you've said, the hardest thing, the one thing that's almost impossible to do, is to time it correctly. Sometimes you can know indeed beforehand that something is going to happen at some point. CCP will look at this ship at some point. It will fix this at some point. But when will that happen? Well, with CCP, you just never know how long some of those changes are going to take. So it's very, very hard to do.
All right. And and I absolutely agree. It's definitely an art and a dismal science, but it's so much. I find it just absolutely fascinating to at least give it the try, because the PvP stuff is fun and all, but trying to predict and report and maybe even shape the market is just so much more engaging and rewarding, at least for my personal playstyle, and I have a feeling that you feel similarly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an integral part of the game that's often overlooked a little bit by the players, and there's just so many great opportunities in there. The nature of other players, sometimes their laziness can really make you a lot of money, and there's nothing better than to actually spot a good trade and make some money on that. That's an absolutely great feeling when you are successful. I would say keep in mind that we're at the forefront of this type of experiment in EVE Online, trying to understand, analyze, and be active in the market in a more public fashion that we try and share with other people and try to make it work. So it all needs its time to evolve, and who knows, maybe at some point we will become movers and shakers in the market in EVE Online, with of course the help of the viewers and other people that feel similarly and want to try to fully understand and grasp that extremely complex beast that is the market in EVE Online. I think it's definitely something for me. It's absolutely fun to do, and I can't wait to see how this keeps evolving and how much more fun we can have with it.
And so, speaking of moving on and evolving, are there any new projects that you're doing that are on the horizon, either in-game or for your YouTube channel, or things that you and your friends might be working on coming up that you'd like to publicize or talk about?
Well, I think people that do watch my channel already pretty much know what our medium-term projects are. At the moment, I'm trying to learn more about nullsec and a market in nullsec by trying to provide Providence with some goods, so seeing what type of industrial opportunities are there. And so that's what we're doing with the corporation at the moment, getting everything set up and working towards that. But medium term, for me personally, it's all about the Citadels. What I would love to be able to get to is a medium Citadel with my own little market in there. Talk about being able to become a mover or a bit of a player in the market. If you have your own well-situated medium Citadel with a market hub, and you can then start taxing people for the trades they do inside your Citadel, that is something that I definitely want to give a go. See how difficult it is to set up, what it will take as an investment, what kind of revenue you make there, what kind of market you can create around yourself. I think that is the experiment that I wanna try with the new expansion. It's gonna be pretty hard, I think, but that's all part of the fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty hyped about Citadels, and I'm actually kicking myself that I don't have the capital handy to a really cool goal would be to be one of those first builders. Unfortunately, I just don't have the kind of capital to throw down for a 700 billion-esque blueprint.
Yeah, those BPO prices, CCP did surprise, I think, pretty much everyone with that 10 times markup right there. I mean, I was like, okay, I may have to downscale my plans just a little bit for this.
Yeah, I've been joking that want to buy 1 trillion-esque.
Of course, it's a little bit understanding from a design point as well, but it makes it that much harder for at least small and independent players to move up to at least a medium type of Citadel. The Excel is just straight out of reach, except for the biggest alliances in the game. 700 billion. Holy, how much time would I have to spend in game to just earn that? That's a crazy amount.
Yeah, I'm hoping that some more information comes out about the rigs and the modules and some of the subcomponents, so that hopefully there's enough demand in the mediums and larges to allow for people to be like, oh, no, I will build you all of the rigs you need for those things, even if I'm not building the actual final product.
Yeah, the rigs are probably going to be an interesting market, and the industrial operation that's most accessible, I think. But then again, you have to probably decide, do you want to go for mediums, large, or Excel stuff? Because what you expect will be most used or the most popular, that's a whole analysis that will need to be made and that everyone will have to decide for themselves. Personally, I'm just hoping that the PPC prices will be somewhat affordable, at least after a little while, so that I can actually try and make one without having to buy all of those blueprint originals. Just like you, I'm also looking to buy a few select originals where I actually think that making that stuff will turn out to be a good return on investment.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. We should team up again to see which predictions are right.
Oh, I fully agree. This is going to be the biggest shakeup of the entire game that I think I've ever experienced, just because of the magnitude and the amount of stuff that's being added that's never been added before, and all of that stuff can be destroyed. It's going to change the game in a pretty serious manner. I can't wait for it. Honestly, I'm really hyped as well for the Citadel expansion. It's going to be an absolute blast. Now, let's just hope that my Plex gamble is going to work out.
Well, the price of Plex will always go up, right?
Generally, it should, inflation, I think, in an online economy is almost guaranteed, except in the most extreme of cases. So I fully agree with it. I'm just hoping on that speculative bubble because of players returning to the game and seeing that new expansion after like a few years. It's been more than a year at least since we've had a big expansion. That's actually going to drive a little bit of speculation and allow me to make some money on that. But in general, I absolutely agree that Plex is bound to keep inflating up as the economy slowly inflates. It's an inevitability in an online economy, I think.
We'll see when they start letting us trade brain meat, because I think that might actually put some brakes on Plex.
Oh, you think that could slow Plex down? I'm not sure. Requiring an Aurum item there should keep increasing demand, in my opinion. So I'm really not sure. What would be your analysis for a break on Plex prices with skill point trading?
Well, so the theory goes, and this does require that CCP makes the extractors trivially cheap in Aurum, so $1 or $2 essentially in Aurum. But the idea I was considering is that since the target audience is sub 10 million skill points, basically inside their first 2 years as consumers, that a prudent player who is more than 6 months in would say, well, I could buy a Plex and keep playing, and that would be great. But if I'm just trying to get to the next achievable, maybe I want to spend my money on the skill packets instead. And I have a feeling that as many veterans with as many alternate accounts that they might have will be farming enough skill points out of their brains to make that a lucrative comparison between 30 days of game time versus 30 days of skills in the upcoming future. But we'll see. It really is hugely dependent on what CCP sets for the price of things.
Yeah, that's an interesting analysis. I had not thought about that. I did realize that it would basically smoothen out the process of creating very specialized alts. But it would basically, once they are created, take away the need to keep training them as well. You are sitting there with completed characters exactly the way you want them. And so you don't necessarily need to keep training them all of the time either, thus reducing the need for like actual plexing of those accounts on a constant basis. That's definitely a possibility. Although, of course, the initial kickstart should put a little bit of a fire under the Plex prices, just because all of the items will have to be bought from Aurum, of course.
Yeah, it's gonna be Wild West the first as soon as it launches, or as soon as we get the real details about what needs to be stockpiled. I also wish they'd give us an easier way to use Aurum tokens, because it turns out they're collector's items. I found out.
Yeah, I'm not all that familiar with the Aurum token market myself. I tend to focus on the in-game market a little bit. I pay for my account, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with what CCP delivers for my subscription. But it's again such a complex proposition that there's probably arguments to be made for either side of Plex moving up or down when CCP, or if CCP decides to come out with this project, because I think it's still a little bit up in the air. But Siegel being really positive about the idea of skill point trading, my personal opinion is that we will see this come to the game at some point. And then, of course, everyone has to make their bets when it comes to its impact on the economy.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward. That's the market I really want to like play in. That if I were going to jump on a speculative buy and sell kind of thing, I want to trade in brain meat. That just sounds like the most Eve item in all of Eve. And I've just been so excited from a lore standpoint of just being able to trade brains in jars.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept. I have a few worries about the idea of trading skill points, but as I've said personally, I'm pretty much neutral to the idea because I can't see anything objectively wrong with the idea. I know that there was a pretty big crowd that started yelling "pay to win" when the idea was first floated there, but I mean it's skill points that are created in game, through game time already, just repackaged and then brought to other characters. So there is just nothing wrong in it. It does fit really well in the Eve storyline, where basically you start implanting skills and knowledge in your brain. So why wouldn't you be able to extract that and sell that to the highest bidder? It does indeed make sense for a full sandbox point of view. I think basically the idea, the for and fronts, it's more of a semantic debate about whether or not you think that the impact on the game will be positive or negative in the short and long term. And I'm pretty much in the middle here. I definitely can't see anything inherently wrong with the idea behind trading skill points.
It's definitely going to be very interesting, and again, we should probably come do this again once it gets launched and see who was right and if there's anything else to talk about.
Absolutely. I'll maybe we should even try and get me on the live show or something like that. I'll have to get up early, but maybe I should just do the effort. We'll stay in contact for sure and try and set all of that stuff up, I think.
So before we wrap up, are there any other shout-outs you want to give to in-game friends? Do you want to pimp the channel again? Any other things you want to cover before we end the show here?
Nope. I just want to thank you for having me on here. I think if there's anything else that I'd want to mention is, I'd say if there's anyone else out there that has interest in EVE Online and making video content the same way that we are, don't be shy about it. Just go for it. It's really fun to do. It's pretty damn rewarding. And I think it can only help the game that you love so much by trying to do that. If you're hesitating about it, or if you're thinking with an idea like what we are doing here, just give that a go. I would definitely encourage anyone that wants to cover EVE Online, because it's such a unique and awesome game. And there's so much to talk about it. Just give that a go. Honestly, there's no reason to hesitate.
Excellent. Thanks again for coming on. It's been a real treat talking with a fellow market maker, and like I said, you're a real inspiration to making the show, and I echo the fun of creating content, whether that's on YouTube or writing a blog or getting involved in the game in a more meta way was really what has kept me chugging along after so many years. So thanks again for coming on.
Yep, no problem, man. And thank you as well for having me on. It's always encouraging to know that other people enjoy what I'm making, and then take the ball and start running their own direction with it. It's an absolute blast to see everything evolve that way.
Well, thanks again for having you on, and we'll see you on the next show. This has been a market maker interview from the Prosper Market Show. I want to thank again delonewolf for coming on the show. If you want to hear more from him, be sure to subscribe on YouTube at delonewolf. He runs Eve Talk, another market show, and a lot of content all week, so make sure to stop by him. We should be having more of these out soon. And if you want to support the show, be sure to subscribe at Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and the blog and the podcast. And if you want to support the show more directly, stop by our Patreon at patreon.com/Eve Prosper. Those, they really help keep the project running. We should be back soon with the same regular Eve Prosper Market Show, and expect another one of these in the near future. Again, I've been LockFox. This has been the Eve Prosper special edition show yet to be named, and I will see you on the next one.